Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your girl Mitzi, and this is Mitzi. Let's think about it. Today we are thinking about youth character and leadership skills. Oh, isn't this a thinker? And luckily, we are thinking about this with Walter. I'm gonna pick his brain and share it with you all so that we can all think about this so much more differently, bring a light into this topic. So thank you so much, Walter, for sharing your time and your perspective with me. You could be doing anything right now, but you are with me. So I truly appreciate your time and wisdom on this topic. So let's just dive right in. When you hear those words, youth character and leadership skills, what does that make you think about?
It's about the youth, the child itself. I mean, we get hung up into measures of some acquiring some sort of knowledge, where I think it's more important where a student begins to understand who they are
Hmm.
and their ability to make relationships among others are the characteristics I think that are most important and probably single signal the potential success of a child. Cognitive skills, EQ skills. And I think that's something that's lacking in education as a whole and needs to be promoted more, not only in schools, but in the communities that youth reside.
Yeah, most definitely. I agree. I think that is something that kids are lacking those skills, those common skills that we as adults perceive as to be, oh, common knowledge. But unfortunately, it's not common knowledge for the youth, for that generation. For some reason, there's this gap where they're just not understanding how to communicate. They're not understanding how to
Exactly.
to operate in the
Exactly.
world, and they just become like frozen. They're like that one saying I heard it's like like a frog in a hailstorm. They're just there just looking and not knowing how to act, not knowing what to do, and they're just hoping somebody else will guide them along. So it's just like how exactly do you think is the best motive for to attack on this? You know what I mean? Is it the parents? Is it the youth? Is it the community? I mean, who really can help the youth in this matter?
Um, it has to be all the above. I mean, uh, there are a lot of youth that don't have a solid home structure.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't mean that they should be not denied an opportunity that those who do have a home structure possess. It has to be a all hands on deck type of situation, but it has to be organized. I mean, in the
Mm-hmm.
sense that it has to be collaborative between not only the school and the home, but also the community, the business sector, the government, and it has to be done collaboratively, especially now because there are so many resources that are being denied our youth.
Yeah.
I used to say when I taught, one of the ways I taught in a formal classroom was as a junior OTC instructor. And what was interesting about that was, for one thing, I did not have any requirement to prepare the student for the standardized testing they had to do at the end of the school year.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't burdened by, a a uh, a lesson plan that corresponded with the anchor assessment areas of the school district. So I could concentrate on things like leadership, character development, interpersonal skills. And it's funny because these are the ones that were probably very or most valued by the administrators of the school. I mean, they used to send me the kids who were having behavior problems. I mean, that's not what I'm there for. But
Yeah.
once they did, I found that in the environment that we provided, they were able to be themselves more. They were able to express themselves more and got out of the traditional classroom environment of coming in, sitting down, being lectured to, and then have to regurgitate it at the end of the week on a school test. So for us, it was a way to kind of understand who the kid was and to concentrate on those areas. And what made that so cool is my belief is if I have a kid in my classroom who has their attention, they're motivated, and they want to learn, and they don't, that's my fault, not theirs. So if that's the case, my effort should be to try to get that student in that state of mind.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the concentration of looking at leadership skills and social skills and the things that probably determine how a student is going to develop over time as a better indicator than test score grades.
Yes, I absolutely agree. It's like that other old saying where it's like you can't expect a fish to climb up a tree. You know what I mean? Like a fish is gonna swim beautifully in the ocean, but once you force that fish to climb up a tree, they're gonna fail. And then if that's how you're gonna identify that fish as a failure because they can't climb up a tree, then who are you? You know what I mean? Like why would we do this? But we are doing this all the times when it comes to our standardized testings. It's not realistic.
Misty, you have a plethora of sayings that I love. What was the first one? The frog in a hailstorm, a fish
Yeah.
climbing a tree. Okay.
I'm telling you, I have so many sayings. Like my mind is so creative, but it's true. Like we don't provide these understanding when it comes to these children that they all have these unique abilities, but we're not nourishing them. You know what I mean? We're not allowing them to grow because we are trying to have them grow in this box and then evolve in this box but never actually step out of the box and see all the beauty that they are. And then these kids grow up thinking, oh, I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. I have no talents. I have no skills. Because if you're a singer or if you're very intelligent in math or science, then that's the only way that you are known of having great
Yeah.
anything. You know what I mean? And it really puts a burden on students because if they're not smart in science or in math, and they can't sing, then they're expected to do well in sports. You know what I mean? To get scholarships and do all
You're
these
right.
things. You know what I mean? So it really hinders these kids because it's like, what if they're not good at sports? What if they're not good at these all these other requirements that makes them intelligent? You know what I mean? And I think that's the problem with this school system is that they don't really help a kid nourish in who they are as a whole individual and to develop those skills. And I also like the fact that you put that into context that sometimes it's not the student itself that has a problem with what they're learning. It's the teacher. They're not providing it in a way that's engaging, you know, and it is the teacher's fault. And I don't think teachers like to take that responsibility or that accountability that it's on them because they feel like they already have a lot on their plate with managing so many heads. So it's just like, how would you recommend the teachers to deal with this differently?
Well, one thing is that I want to first of all avoid ever saying it's a teacher's fault, and that's because teachers are in a system that is very restrictive for them.
Yeah,
You know,
most definitely.
and in not only what the content of what's taught, but the methods of it being taught as well, which is
Yeah.
not conducive for first of all maximum participation of the student. It doesn't engender a firm understanding of the topic that are being discussed. It is just a okay. I'm going to teach this from Monday to Friday. A certain percentage of kids are going to get it, and then after this week, those others are going to be that farther behind. It's just
Mm-hmm.
like that. I mean, that's all it is. The problem which you had mentioned about education, I think, is prominent, is that it's all right for kids to go to school and not understand or learn something that was taught to them. But I think it's a crime for a kid to go to school, complete school, and not know what they're good at, which is
Mm-hmm.
what a lot of kids don't even understand. You know, the way you were talking about a minute ago about music or sports or whatever, that which you are good at is usually the lens by which you see the world. So if I'm good in chemistry, in some way or another, I'm seeing everything through a chemist's eyes, if you know what I mean. It's all right, it's a filter, but it's something that becomes the anchor for their understanding of things. And I think that that's something that most schools don't pursue and most kids don't achieve. But what's always, I think, is appropriate in their development is the way they're able to interact and share information among each other. I think that the new world that we are now approaching and I use the term of AI and robotics, there are a lot of positions now that are going to be eliminated, especially in entry level for kids coming out of school, coming out of college. And there needs to be some sort of strategy on how, not only how we address that, but maybe realign our focus on how we're going to develop our kids into what.
Exactly.
And I use the term, if I can kind of explain this in a loose way, everything seems to be predicated on the new, something that's bright and shiny that no one's ever seen before.
Mm-hmm.
But we also need to get our kids to understand that which has always been available that can be improved. Food, being a chef,
Yeah.
drinking wine, making wine, things that are artistic in nature as well, which is the things I just mentioned are. Those things also have a value
Yeah.
that our kids need to begin to understand. A relationship of understanding that which is different doesn't become uh, uh, a negative, but embracing differences. And I think that a lot of times we retreat to something that we're familiar with without having the understanding of how it blends into things that we already know. It's a long discussion we could have about that, and I believe that it starts with an organized approach. I'm sorry,
Okay.
an organized approach through a way that we can incorporate what is the everyday experience the kid has to something of value to them for their future, such as campaigning for something that's important,
Yeah.
finding a project within a community and working with others to correct it. And that's why we're looking at developing our service learning programming by identifying the 17 Sustainable Development Goals of the UN, which are applicable to your community, and then creating strategies for kids locally to work together to begin to solve those problems. And
Yeah.
that's something that's immediate, something that makes learning have tangible content rather than just something that is just spoken about. Did you understand it? And then moving on. You know, and I think that's a characteristic of everybody has. If you want to get people to start working together and start feeling good about themselves, give them successes, give them something that at the end there's a completion and it has some sort of value. And I think those are things also that are missing in kids' lives.
Oh, I absolutely agree because I know that truly makes a big impact because I remember when I was in high school, I I don't even know how I got into this project, but I got into this project of recycling and we had to make a conveyor belt. And when we made the conveyor belt, we actually provided it to the recycling company in our city and we did the tour of the how this recycling conveyor belts automatically work in the building. And then when we went back to our school to do the project, we had to try to replicate that conveyor belt and how to replicate it so that people can understand how to recycle. So that was embedded in me to recycle, to understand
Oh,
what's
cool.
recyclable and what's not. And that's how I got into my first children's book is talking about recycling and the importance of water so that it also helps kids really think about what's recyclable and what's not and think about their impact on water and how water's usage is important because that was another part of that project was focusing on water and how it's important for our lives. So knowing that and seeing that and being partake in that, it really helped me change the way my outlook is when it comes to water and recycling, where I am pro um doing all of these things in my adult life. And it all started with that one teacher implementing these projects for our science projects and putting us in different groups and allowing us to really have that hands-on experience. So I think if more schools and more teachers and more environments provide those type of resources to have that positive impact, it will most definitely make a long impact because it did it on me and I'm proof of that. You know what I mean? So because I can say that and that I had that personal experience, I know with what you're saying is very valid because if we allow our children to see how the world is impacted by something so small as water or something so small as electricity, then we can allow them to see the responsibilities that comes with it. You know what I mean? How to be responsible with food, how to be responsible with these things. And I think, like you said, like teaching these kids of just something so what we would dismiss as it being a chef is so important. You can enhance it in so many ways. Like I love watching baking shows. I mean, you know what I mean? I love seeing those because what people can create with things that I couldn't even imagine even being possible is that creativity, and we allow people to be creative and imaginative in their own way. But if we don't nourish that or allow kids to see that this is also approved, it's acceptable, it's another way, it's another avenue to learn more about yourself and the world, then it allows them to explore. You know what I mean? We are not keeping them contained in this box. We're not keeping them contained in this vision of just being this one-sided mentality. We allow them to really explore different avenues, and that's where the leadership skills automatically step into because now they want to take charge. Now they want to help other people in the community, educate them and make sure that they're aware of what's going on. You know what I mean? And I think just having that character development, you kind of need to have the context to develop the character. Because if you don't have the context of the understanding, then you really won't have that character development. It would just be like it was gone with the wind. You know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
just words in one ear and out the other because they won't stick. So I think what you said is truly beautiful because it really helps people think about how are they teaching the next generation to have this critical thinking. You know what I mean?
Well, one of the things that was interesting, as I said, I was a junior artillery instructor, and the projects, I guess, that were considered to be highlights of the unit were things like collecting donations, like a coat drive approaching wintertime, or a food drive if there's an emergency or something. But what was interesting was I retired from the military. So my last job was called an EPLO, Emergency Preparedness Liaison Officer for the state of Pennsylvania. And at the time I took over, they had just had Sandy Hook, this shooting, the mass shooting. So my kids and I developed a active shooter response plan for the school that we were in, and it was pretty good. The Philadelphia Sheriff's Department found out about it
Mm-hmm.
and had my kids, my junior OC kids, uh, design, write, and conduct the active shooter response exercise in Philadelphia's Criminal Justice Center for the Sheriff's Department, Police Department, Fire Department. My
Wow.
kids ran it, and uh, they were going to be in the hallways evaluating when they're in their junior RTC uniforms by making inputs into the results of the exercise into a computer application that I wrote for them into their phone.
Wow.
And they would then use that to do the corrective action for those three groups afterwards. We did a pandemic response plan where we simulated a someone who came into school in the morning at 9 o'clock as normal, and then by 12 they would discover that they had measles, which has the highest RO rate, which means contagion rate. So they had to create a quarantine system and a reaction plan for the school based on where the student went within the school, who was in the same area. Those are numbers. That's an analysis process
Yeah.
that just taking the kids through it opens up so many doors. I worked with John Hopkins University in Baltimore, and we're looking at ways that we can create understandings of some of the basic concepts and principles of science, such as what is osmosis, um, describing a ecosystem, either from a pond or a meadow. It's the
Mm-hmm.
same if you understand the relationship that you're creating. So ways of teaching kids needs to be expanded tremendously. How we approach education needs to be changed because the lecture and regurgitation on tests limits what you're getting out of the student in the time that you have with them.
Hmm.
As early as the maybe as far back as 2007, 2008, I know that the University of Pennsylvania, at least one Ivy League school, which kind of led Pennsylvania as a whole, were accepting kids from high schools where the high schools did not give grades, but rather journals where they basically documented the students' involvement in projects. And there was a lot of effort in getting these kids involved in collaborative um, project-based learning activities that they felt exposed the kid to much more than just the conclusion at the end of a test.
Yeah, exactly.
So, so those kind of things need to be adopted more, and it has to then be changed from a standards-based assessment where, if let's just say I'm introducing new material on Monday, I give a quiz on Wednesday, then I give a test on Friday. Student gets 800 questions right, they get an 80, which has no value to me, none.
Hmm.
We have a system where we evaluate kids where I might assign 6, 8, 10 cognitive skill sets that I'm looking for out of the student's performance in the activity I have for them and evaluate each one of those skill sets independently so that for the same activity, rather than having a single number, I may have as many as 10, 20, 30 metric outcome indicators for the same activity. And
Mm.
these are ways that you can create strategies that broaden what we're able to do in the classroom and the exposure the kids can have. But you have to realize that much of what the education reform would be is not necessarily how we change what we're teaching the kids, but how we change how we're assessing them. So we
Hmm.
talked about cognitive skills, you're talking about leadership and character development. You're not going to have that reflected on a standardized test at the end of the school year. You're going to have that as an exposure of what that kid is doing on a day-to-day basis in an interactive environment that allows you to capture the outcomes as they are happening.
Exactly. And that's the problem with these tests because they expect children to memorize.
That's all it
Memorize
is.
is not learning. Memorize is not learning. All you're doing is memorizing, and I can
And
memorize easily.
it doesn't show relationships. So if you
Exactly.
have if you're looking at it in terms of most of the things that we learn, I just mentioned about learning an ecosystem, either using a pond or a meadow. It's basically concepts. They're a context. I'm sorry, context. So if you understand the concepts behind something, you
Hmm.
can then utilize those concepts in any context. And
Yes.
that's what we need to begin to understand. And it's funny because a lot of it has to do with actual exposure. I mean, we don't if you get the brightest minds in the world and then put them in an environment where there's nothing there, the skill sets that's going to get them to the next level in survival has to do with innate skills that they have.
Hmm.
Like if in terms of understanding and deciphering, the tools that are around you, the materials that are around you. How can you defend yourself? How do you build a home? How do you do those type of things? That's basically skill sets that are foreign in most classrooms.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
those are the things that kids need to learn because that's the world they're going to be going into.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. Like I remember a few months ago or a few years ago, I'm not quite sure when, but I know that there was a program to help kids from New York City um understand how to survive in nature. So they would take them out to go camping and they would teach them how to camp, how to work together as a team. And one of the students said that it's a different type of living because when you're out in nature, we're all together. You know, what I mean, we're all
Right.
trying to survive. So we're all learning how to work together for the greater good of all of us. But when you're out in the city, you're surviving for yourself. It's all for one and one for all. There's nothing else. We're not working as a team. We're working to try to survive and try to make it for another day. And people don't realize like the concrete jungle is real. That's the reason why they call it a concrete jungle is because you're trying to survive for yourself. But when you out and you try to learn how to have these normal survival skills, you learn something more than just how to stack wood or you know what I mean or how to create
Well,
a tent. So it
well,
really is different.
one of the things that right after the election in January, I launched a website, no, Community Public Square, so www.communitypublicsquare.com, which is basically used as a site for organizing communities. And it's actually being used as a business model as well. But let me kind of explain what that is. It goes through a process of understanding, first of all, who's your leadership team. So I'm encouraging students, either at the high school level, at the college level, or just concerned citizens getting together in a community and identifying 4 to 6 individuals that will serve as the management of this community effort. Then we look at them identifying for themselves who are their stakeholders, who are all of those within the community that will help them, business leaders, civil servants, community activists, to be part of people they can go to help them along the way in achieving either connections or resources or whatever.
Yeah.
Then looking at identifying all the locations and facilities that are available that can be meeting places, auditoriums, stages areas, gyms, conference rooms, so that you can then have venues for different type of activities you want to have locally within your community, such as meeting places, classrooms for students, or a functioning kitchen that can then be used as a place for teaching people how to cook healthy meals. So every item has a value, or every location has a value that can be part of the community's now efforts to educate themselves.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the resources that are available. What resources? Desks, chairs, electronic equipment, computers. So those things are all put together as the beginning, the foundation of what this organization, this group of people would then look to organize their community. Then from that information, they go through what we consider a strategic plan. Where do you see yourself as a community in 3 years? Identifying that, it could be tied to climate change. It could be tied to specific requirements of the community, such as maybe there's a need to have more food security. It could be infrastructure, renovating buildings, whatever it may be. But that becomes part of a strategic plan out for the next 3 years.
Yeah.
And then the site itself then creates a plan that allows people to form groups to address each one of those areas that have been identified, and then it's tracked by the community. So you're starting off, you're 0%. Then as you get things done, you're 5%, 10%, 20%, 30%, on in achieving your goal as a community. So those are the kind of things we're trying to create in getting people involved in civic engagement activities, because I think that's the answer right
It
now.
is. It
Immediate
is.
answer for things that we need to do and deal with at the moment. So
Absolutely, because I think it helps people realize that you can be a problem solver. You know what I
yes,
mean? And instead of waiting for somebody else to take the wheel, or waiting for somebody else or the government to finally take a hold on something or manage something, you can take that initiative. You can build up your community to be how you wish it would be. You know what I mean?
yes,
It's like that old saying, if you want, if you be the person that you never had. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
when you be the person that you didn't have, then now you can be that person for somebody else, so that they can be inspired to do more, be more, and achieve more. And we are lacking in the community if we just only think for ourselves. And that's that this independent movement, that's me, myself, and I. And we really have to move out of that mindset and really realize, like, there's no such thing as obtaining life by yourself, moving by yourself, doing everything by yourself, and not needing anyone, because You need somebody to have gas in the gas station. Somebody needs to bring that petroleum to that gas station. Somebody needs to bring that food to the food market. Somebody needs to do something to have those accessibilities available so that you can actually thrive and move as an individual. But people forget that. They think, oh, I could do everything all on my own. But no, you really can't. And when we start realizing and teaching the youth that we need one another and we have these programs available and we have these leaders, these adults that are mentoring the youth in a positive direction, it can truly make a positive impact, not on just our community, but the world. Because now somebody's going to be like, oh, well, this is happening in Delaware, then that means this can happen here in Wisconsin too, or this can happen in Minnesota, or this can happen in Idaho, or wherever you may be. And it's like it brings hope. And the world needs hope again. The youth needs hope because the
Oh
youth
my
are
God, you're right
scared.
about
You
that.
know what I mean? The youth are scared for their future because they don't even understand what's happening now, and they're pressured by whatever that the extreme sides are going on, but not recognizing what does it mean for me? How
Yeah.
does it impact me? How can I impact the world around me? And we need to bring that back because that also ties into leadership, that ties into their character development, that ties into their selves as an individual, you know what I mean? And how one can make so many. So, yes, it truly is impactful. And it's sad because time is catching up to us, Walt. And I feel like I could keep talking to you for hours on end. But what can be some lasting words that you can leave us off with to keep on thinking?
Uh, I think it's we need to change direction, and not just a course change, but a an effort to come to a different reality. I say that because I'm much older than you, and I blame a my generation for not leaving the world the way we got it. We dropped the ball because we were the ones that had the easiest. The generation behind us, following us, will have a harder time. Our parents had a harder time. So there's an issue I have in how we have allowed our our fortune to be diminished as a result of our inaction to
Yeah.
protect it.
Hmm.
From that, I just think that we need to kind of now look at how we can create a reality for our kids that is much more conducive for their survival, and it's not based on the old way of going to school and then getting grades based on standardized testing and all that, and that the focus needs to be to develop a child so they understand and can create mastery of self.
Mm.
And once that is happened, once that achieved, there's no end to where that kid can go.
Amen. Ain't that the truth? I mean, because there really is no ends once you master yourself.
Yes,
And sadly, you don't learn to master yourself until you're already in your 30s, 40s plus range. Because when you're in your teens, you're trying to figure out life, trying to feel belonged and trying to feel accepted. And in your 20s, you're trying to make your stands and prove who you are, but you're still lost. We're still lost. The generations after in the young in the youth, they're still so lost because they're trying to figure it out, and there a lot of the times the adults, they're still trying to figure it out themselves. They don't
exactly. I
know.
would say that.
You know what I mean? We're still all trying to figure it out, and I think once we teach the youth how to master themselves and how to think purposely and more have that initiative and that go-getter mentality, that problem solver spirit, it makes things make sense again.
Yes,
And
it
so
does.
many things don't make sense right now, and the youth are confused because they're looking up at the adults, and the adults are like, well, good luck because we're still figuring it out. So yes, I agree. It's a hot mess that we are walking into, but hopefully this conversation starts making people think about their impact differently, think about their community differently, think about the world differently, and the youth that are listening, that they can feel motivated and enticed to realize like it's on my hands to do something, to change my environment, to change my scenario, to know that today is not my forever. And I think knowing that is truly and powerful. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to know more about Walter, because how could you not after this conversation? How could you not go check him out? I have access to all the links that we were talking about to his website. So, to find out ways for you to make your impact, to make that stance, to do the difference, to be that change in your community wherever you are. If you want to reach out to him just for questions, and pick his brain, go to his website. It has all of this great information, so much great content. Oh, you'll be doing yourself a disservice not to keep on thinking along with Walter. So, with that being said, always keep thinking, y'all. Bye.